You are listening to the Mountainside Podcast. My guest for today is my good friend Jordan Kurtz. He is an MMA commentator, host of the MMA Plug, broadcasting on Mile High Sports Radio. I always enjoy having Jordan in to record key conversations. This was a great episode, and I hope that you enjoy. Back on the mountainside. You got a fresh haircut, man. The last time you were in here, you were Goldilocks, bro.
I looked like a mountain man on the mountainside last time.
That's true, man. Congratulations on the new fresh fade there.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. You know, just it was time. You know, ever since I had grown it out for about 5 years, and I knew that there was going to be a point to where, as far as my growth, my development, career path, trajectory, all of that, where that was going to come to a crossroads. And it just started being a point to where, you know, there were people within the know or within the industry, within those sort of positions that were like, hey, man, like your skills are there. Your skills are there to get you to that next level now. It's a matter of you've got to put together the complete look and the presentation that networks are going to want to be able to get behind.
Got it.
And really and truly, you know, I mean, it was one of those things that I fought for a while because sometimes, you know, you have a little bit of your own ego or pride or whatever, like, oh, man, like, no, I'm going to do it my way. Like, I'm going to – but that's just not the way that the world works.
Right? I mean, yeah.
Exactly. Like, I mean, you've got to be like the elite 0.001% if you're going to have some complete anomaly like that to be able to make it work. But really and truly, one of the, you know, the big – I guess, final factors pushing me in that direction was Coach Mark. Yeah, I had a long, you know, a real in-depth conversation with him. I mean, we talked about it the last time that I was up here about how much that Coach Mark Montoya means to me.
You had to fight somebody or something. Keep your hair at one point, right, or something. Right?
Yep. Oh yeah. Well, that all because in lieu.
Right, too.
UFC 241 out in California.
No shit. That's hilarious.
But yeah, and it was. All along, Coach hated the long hair. There's no secret or surprise as far as that goes. But then it got to that point to where we were going out to my co-host for my radio show, the MMA Plug on Mile High Sports Radio, which you all can watch on Wednesday nights from 6 to 7 p.m. live.
Yeah, there you go. Slide that right in there.
Yep,
Is that
exactly.
Josh Fremd, too?
Yep.
Okay.
Josh Fremd, yep.
Yeah, we've had Josh on before, thanks to you, actually. But
yeah, Josh is great. Absolutely love him. We were going out. So Josh got the opportunity to fight on the Dana White Looking for a Fight series, which happened at James Krause's show, FAC, out there in Independence, Missouri.
I watched it.
Yeah.
Kind of awesome.
Incredible show out there. But so Josh gets that opportunity to go out there to fight in front of Dana and the boys and to potentially earn that contract. There was also the buzz of the Nelk boys were out there, and they've been in the talks of wanting to bring on somebody for their media team as like a UFC ambassador or someone to go and cover the events on their behalf. And so we just looked at it as, well, this might be an opportunity to go have a 2-for-1 out here. You know, we both go get something out of this experience and this opportunity. And then obviously we go out there, Josh gets the finish, he gets the win, he gets signed to the UFC. Neither one of us ended up getting that Nelk Boys deal, but in the end, it was still a great trip overall for the networking and just the ability to just have that sense of fulfillment. You know,
and Dana himself showed up to that, right? I thought I remember seeing him there or something.
Yeah, Dana, Matt Serra, Dean Thomas, they were all sitting right there cage side for it, along with like Salim, Kyle from the Nelk Boys, and Steve will do it, along with their assistants like Gabe and some of those other guys. But yeah, so it was a big ordeal out there that they had at the event center out there in Independence, and that arena was pretty packed out for more of a regional level type of show. But it was also, you know, obviously there was a lot of fanfare driven to that show based off of it being the next recorded show of the Looking for a Fight series, and there was a ton of Full Send fans out there. So it was an incredible atmosphere, I feel like, for all of these guys, especially maybe some of the fighters on the undercard, to where in general, most of the time, especially, you know, maybe some of these Midwest shows, you're not going to have a crowd of a few thousand people that are packing an arena to fight in front of. this is not going to happen.
Throwing some big names in there, and all of a sudden, right?
Right, exactly. You know, you start having these guys that are looking toward the top of the card, like, you know, Eduardo Dantas was on the card, Dudu Dantas, who he's a former multiple-time Bellator world champion. You know,
right.
We have history from the Factory X side of that with Dudu because Joe Warren exchanged titles with him back in the day. So you have some big names on that card that's going to just drive some of the overall prestige and value for the billing right there. Then you have a guy like Josh goes in and gets his job done. Another kid who's a savage who is on the rise is Mikey England. He's a kid from James Krause's camp, and that dude's phenomenal. It's only a matter of time before Mikey gets his opportunity because the kid he's an absolute workhorse. He's a firefighter away from fighting. So
oh, no shit.
Yeah, incredible
That's
dude.
Cool.
Just an awesome person, amazing human being all the way around. So, you know, it was cool to make a lot of connections with those fighters out there from that territory and that footprint that I had known, you know, virtually or digitally through the internet, through social media, through just chatting back and forth through Instagram, Twitter, whatever that may be. But then actually going out, or even through some of them, we had interviews like my buddy Kevin Kroom, who fights in the UFC, some of the rest of James Krause's camp out there, and just some of the other extenuating legs that came through. There was people, you know, like Jillian Robertson to Pearl Gonzalez. There was tons of big names that were there for that one show. So it was cool to make a lot of those connections out there from a lot of the people, you know, that you just know through the digital space. To make that personal face-to-face connection is a whole just different level, I feel like.
Yeah. So that was the catalyst for the scissors then, huh?
That was the big catalyst circling it all back, was to go out and to make an impression. Yeah, and then to start looking at it from the side of things of who are the people who are in the roles or in the positions that I want to be in at some point, and
Everybody's got a fresh fade, right?
Exactly. Everybody has a clean and just well presented image in front of the camera, which I understand, and I knew that day was going to come at some point. And Coach Mark even said, like, you know, in Coach Mark's terms, like, whether you agree with it or not, it doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
It's just the way that it fucking is.
That's Coach, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, with that, it was just, it meant a lot to me, though, that right then, like, that Coach took like an hour and a half out of his day that day to just talk to me, and we went down the list of literally everybody on the media scene, everybody from the top to the bottom that covers, you know, from local to regional scenes, everyone all the way down, from your Rogans and Annex all the way down. We went through the list of people in those media roles and positions and talked, okay, skill set for skill set, where am I at versus what do they have? And then also, once we got down through that, you said, okay, well then we've eliminated that it's not a skill or an ability or a knowledge base, comfortability in front of the camera or speaking on a microphone issue. It's none of those things. What is one differentiating factor between you and the rest of these people that may possibly hold you back? And that's where we came to that conclusion. Right.
That's dope. That he's so not only is he coaching UFC fighters, he's coaching guys, like mentoring guys like you, right? Like,
definitely. I mean,
in a completely different field, you know.
Yeah,
the same field, but
it's just his whole thing is, even with the fighters, it's be a champion in life first. You know, you got to figure out those things, and so for him to take that time to just say, like, hey, like, these are controllables. Whatever may happen out there in the marketplace, whether it's you actually going out there and fighting, me putting out some sort of produced content or being on the radio, whatever it may be, that result has its variance that you can only put out your best effort, and, you know, the man in the arena, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But if you handle the controllables, that much more of the process you can kind of get in front of. You know, if it's a thing of, all right, well, if I come in and I have a tailored suit, I'm clean cut, and I'm able to ask the right questions, shake the right hands, and make the right impressions, that's going to go a lot further than just kind of being someone who blends in the mix. Even when I go now and cover the UFC shows, like I was there down in Jacksonville for the last one when this last pay-per-view when Josh fought and Vince Pichel fought as well. He would be a great get for you guys to have on here. Yeah, Vince is...
Love to have him on. So,
complete renegade all the way up your alley.
Yeah.
You know, oh, yeah, definitely.
No, I'd love to have him.
But someone like just going out there and being in the UFC media space in that regard, there is so many people out there that I have a ton of respect for, but I also feel like, man, like it's just a matter of time before I'm on your heels.
Right.
And it's only a matter of time before I get the opportunity to start getting to those bigger platforms. But I also don't take it for granted. I put in work every single week trying to continue to elevate my skill set. And not just every week. I mean, it's a daily effort, right? It's a daily effort on this pursuit. But each week we have consistent things that we're putting out. Me and Josh have our radio show every week. I try to put out whether it's weekend recaps or whatever, as much as we possibly can.
And that's a live recording too, right? So
right.
Yeah.
That's live radio. That's also putting myself in the fire, doing everything from commentary for some of the local shows to some bigger regional shows, doing photography for shows like LFA. LFA will be back in Denver in a few weeks. They'll be at the Magnus Arena at DU. Last year, I won the LFA Photo of the Year.
Nice.
So just little things like that. I mean, I've kind of spread my roots a little bit to where I can do everything within like that media vertical or that media space, if you will, whether it's the production stuff, the actual capturing of the content and that essence, or being in front of the camera, having the microphone in my hand, doing something live, whatever that may be. I can do all of it. In the end, hopefully I don't have to do all of it.
And isn't that like one of the best ways for me to critique myself is to go back and actually listen? Because when we're sitting here having a conversation, like now that I'm 88 episodes in, I kind of got a feel for it. But like before, I didn't even know what I was saying sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you're so in your own head, and now I'm more relaxed in it. Mm-hmm. But I can go back and critique myself. But just by listening to this recording, maybe I said this or maybe I interrupted you. I used to be really bad about interrupting people like fucking nonstop. Just go check the YouTube comments. They're like, this would be a great interview if the guest would stop interrupting,
Yeah.
Or if the host would stop it interrupting rather. So yeah, those little things like that. It's like, I think that you can only get better. So I urge anybody that's thinking about doing this or is on the fence or self-conscious with it, just fucking do it, man. Like, Agreed. Just do it and start. You got to start someplace, right? So
certainly, and just like you said right there, though, you also have to be willing to be humble enough in the process to make those adjustments and corrections that you yourself have to make. Because if you just keep on treading forward with the thought of like, oh, like no, like they don't know what they're talking about. Like I'm gonna do it how I want to do it, type of thing. Well. Yeah, you may get away with that for a little bit, but you have to be receptive to feedback. You have to be receptive to coaching and constructive criticism in that way. Doesn't always mean that it's a bad thing, but you have to be for some of those little things, just like you say there with, like not jumping into a conversation or stepping over a statement, whatever that may be. If you pay attention to what your audience is directly telling you, they're giving you the direct cues. It's right. Like, okay, like if it's maybe, here and there, you're always going to get one-offs. You're always going to get, the naysayer here and there. But if it's a consistent thing that you're getting that feedback on, or especially if there's some people out there who you really trust their opinion on the content or what they consume on a regular basis, like, hey, this is what's going on, with what you're doing, then this is what some of the people who are really thriving are doing. Kind of situation.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think you got to look at other people too. Like, right. You got to have some sort of mentor, and it's always good to have somebody in your corner too. I got Jeremy over here to critique me too. So like, that's always helpful to have somebody like, yo, did I fuck this up, or does this sound okay? Like it's okay to like do that.
You need a worse critic than you.
But no, and then sometimes it's just listening. Like that's the biggest thing that I've learned is just listen to somebody. Like. That's all you got to do. And I think people have a really hard time of doing that. Like I can tell when I have somebody sitting across from me that's never been on a pod and they just want to keep, chiming in or their brain's somewhere else when you're talking to them, but like it's so much easier when I have somebody like yourself in because you've probably spent thousands of hours more on a mic than I have, honestly.
I've spent a lot of time on the microphone. But yeah, I mean, and just like you say there, unless, and I mean, even he still has things that he can always improve upon, and there's certainly criticisms that especially over about the last year and a half, have been mounted his way. But none of us are Rogan.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, whether you like him or not, you have to respect the platform that you built.
One. No matter how hard you're chasing him.
Right.
Honestly. Yeah.
Exactly. And my point with all of that is he's, I mean, I think it's fairly safe to say overall he's the greatest podcaster that's out there right now.
100%.
Even, you know, take some of your other big names out there in whatever space it may be, you know, to not get so polarized with maybe how some of the audience may be. I'm sure it won't be an issue with your folks, but somebody even like, unless you're the guy who has a $100+ million deal that you just signed, you probably have some work that you can do to improve in some areas somewhere along the way. So it'd be foolish for you not to try to find those areas of improvement.
Right. And we don't need 100 Rogans. We need one Rogan, right? And like, that's one thing that I think all the advice that I've gotten, some of the best advice, and some of this even comes from Coach Mark Montoya, you know, is just be yourself. You know, you can't hide when you spend this many hours on a mic, you know, like countless hours. It's going to come out eventually who you are. So you might as well just be yourself, you know, like don't try to play things up too much. Don't be too dramatic with your voice, you know, like all that sort of stuff I think is huge too.
Definitely. And I feel like you can't be afraid to, in general, in this world or in media, content creation, whatever it is, you can't be afraid to fail. Because you're gonna bomb at some point. You may think there's something new or creative or a new angle. Exactly. You know, but that's a fact of the matter of the business. It's gonna happen. But if you let that fear of failure keep you from putting something out there, you might miss the opportunity on something that could be a gem. It could be something that you're kind of unsure about or have just your own personal insecurities to, but then you put it out and people love it. You never know what it's going to be. And then there's some times where you may have some segment or a bit of content or, you know, a photo or a piece of art that you did that you thought, man, like, this is awesome. Like, I'm feeling this vibe. And then you put it out and
everybody shits on it.
Exactly. So, you know, you never know what it's going to be. You can't let that fear of failure dictate your ability to take the leap and jump and try to pursue these opportunities.
And I think being the best that you can be, showing up for the game, right? It's just like being in a fight camp or something, if you want to use that analogy. Like for me, I had an opportunity to record the last episode that we recorded last week, and it was with somebody in Ukraine, and the only time that I could get on with them was at 4 o'clock in the morning, West Coast, which was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I just wasn't awake, dude. I wasn't prepared, like mentally I wasn't prepared, so I was fumbling over my own words. I forgot a couple of the questions I want to ask, you know, and it was a pretty important conversation. So I feel like I could have done a better job, you know, but
it happens.
But you got to take those opportunities when they're there, right? Like, you get that last minute fight.
But so tell me this,
you're
though.
On the verge.
So you had that situation happen, right? It's kind of somewhat of an adverse circumstance in terms of the timing. You're facing your own personal adversity of, you know, getting up. Maybe you have a little bit of that brain fog, everything going on. But should that opportunity come again, or you have to take a call and
stay
do this
up all night.
But
it's remote too.
Yeah.
You know an adjustment to make, though, right?
Oh, 100%.
So it's not a complete loss.
It's a learning
in that
lesson.
sense. It's a learning experience. You're able to take away something from that, okay, well, maybe this didn't go the way that I saw it going, or it didn't go, you know, I don't have that same sense of gratification and personal satisfaction of if it would have been, you know, a home run right out of the gate, but I can go back and address X, Y, and Z items from this that next time I know how to approach this better.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And I mean, some of that, like one of my favorite videos out there, period, it kind of goes back to this guy with Jocko.
Yeah.
The Jocko,
you like that shit? It's pretty good, huh?
Oh, yeah, it's pretty
Jocko
good. This is the first
pretty
one
good.
that I've had. But
yeah,
this is
that's
awesome.
actually our last can of it. So I'd be drinking one with you, but
yeah. Jocko Go, this stuff is awesome.
We picked them up as a sponsor.
Too.
And I had never had it before, and Origin's great. And all the supplements that I've gotten from them so far have been fucking awesome, dude. But yeah, that's a good go-to. It also has nootropics in it. I had no idea. So like some brain function shit in there, you know. So
yeah, definitely. But you know, back with Jocko, that Go video, or excuse me, the Jocko Good video.
Oh yeah.
Where it just essentially it talks about, okay, you didn't get the job promotion that you were in line for. Good. You didn't get qualified for the house that you were applying for. Good. Just a long list of things, of expectations or things that you may have been preparing for or hyped up for and on the ascent, but it doesn't happen. The adversity, whatever it may be, prevents you from getting that opportunity. Well, good. That's just more time and another opportunity for you to learn how to get better so that the next time the opportunity comes, you're able to seize the moment and capture it right away. It's just, I don't know, I feel like approach is so much of everything, and I've gone through so much adversity in my life as a whole that, you know what, like life, no matter what my bullshit may be or what may be going on in the world as a whole, the sun's going to keep on rising. Yeah. So it's whether or not you want to, if you get stuck in your own lows, yeah, sometimes it's going to be hard to get out. But if you've been through that point, then you just got to recognize what those signs are and like start doing everything that you did to keep yourself on top. Lauren Landau has an incredible quote that says the quickest way to fall off is to stop doing everything that got you there in the first place. So if you have that routine and those fundamental base things that you do on a regular basis, whether it's just going to the gym, making sure that you're getting up in the morning, you're drinking your water, all of those
routine,
things.
Yep.
Exactly. And people think that small stuff along those lines that now it gets branded as self-care, but really, isn't that just taking care of yourself and being healthy?
Yeah.
Like making sure that
Which
you're getting the right nutrition and sleep.
Better brain function.
Right.
Better positive mental attitude, like all that stuff. It's just it's a domino effect, right? To goodness, really.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, like you say with, just with opportunities out there, there's always going to be the chance that, like we said earlier, that you may bomb. And I say dumb shit on the microphone all the time, or you try to be funny, or especially when you're on live air. Sometimes you're almost like, in a way, like when you're being an entertainer. And I also host events like the watch party that we'll be having this weekend for the UFC 274 card. Those sorts of things. You've got to a certain extent, you're a dancing monkey. You've got to be able to be the entertainer.
You have a heightened sense of what's going on around you and how you want to portray yourself, right? Right. So even in this recording right now, like I find when the mic's off, it's a very much more like laid back, casual conversation, because when that little light's on up there, everything that you're saying, but not. I think that that's the best part about podcasting is it's been acceptable to be able to fuck up a little bit or not go to a commercial break right at the right time, or whatever like that. So I think that's one of my favorite parts. And just to be able to sit down and have a conversation. Sometimes I forget that this is going on,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a great point, because part of like one of my shows, the radio show, the MMA Plug, that's fit for broadcast.
Yeah.
So we do have to, at times, we're up against those station breaks
really
and those sorts of things.
Something like that.
It's tough, but you learn how to, there's a saying that I've been told my entire life. It was something that my old man hammered in my head, and just through my life as a competitor, as an athlete, and then growing into, from sales, then into business of my own, be an athlete, make an adjustment. So that's where I circle back to sports always being a teacher of life. That's something that taught me so much from a young age, from just general
so
values.
Good for you.
I completely agree. That's, again, just the core values of the hard work, the teamwork, dedicating yourself to a purpose and a cause bigger than yourself, learning how to deal with failure, learning how to face adversity, having to have some of those character moments where you've got to look yourself in the mirror, dig deep, and figure out what you really have. All of those things I learned from sports originally. But then, especially having a baseball background, that's something that you have to learn how to have. And my good buddy Dustin Jacoby, I feel like this is a catchphrase that he should trademark, but short-term memory, bulletproof confidence.
Yeah.
You've got to take that approach in order to succeed, because what you did yesterday, that happened yesterday. What are you going to do today to try to build yourself for tomorrow? That's what it kind of comes down to in that regard. And again, like, you might have hit a home run yesterday. Great. Tremendous opportunity. And then it was the same thing when I worked in sales. yeah, you might have had a good day yesterday. You might have moved a few units and put some dollars in your sales bucket, a few different little incentives towards your commissions once the end of the month comes. But that was yesterday. If you don't come to play ball today, that's a day that you didn't eat, basically. So I don't know. I've just kind of tried to take that approach into this world now and just attacking everything as relentlessly as possible.
Yeah, no, that's a fucking great approach. And I think that you can take so much from those little analogies, whether it's short snippets from a Joe Rogan podcast or having guys, your own guys in to talk. And we've had Dustin on multiple times, like it feels like a little Factory X family around here. You know what I mean? Like, I love having those guys in. I got to ask you this, because you do the radio stuff and all that, and you have, multiple podcasts, you do multiple interviews, MMA commentator, and I know how much work goes into just producing this and the homework that I do on some of my guests. Like, if I don't know them, I got to figure out a little bit about them to have a conversation with them, right? And your fight knowledge is incredible, dude. Like, I
appreciate that.
I'm a fan of the UFC, but I don't have the chops that you do when it comes to stats and all that sort of stuff. How many hours a day are you putting in to that before you talk about it? Is that just something that naturally comes to you, or
a little
you're
bit of
studying
both.
it all the time, or how does that work for you?
The fascination, I guess, some of that knowledge base with numbers, statistics, rankings, those sorts of things along those lines, I guess that kind of has a certain root to the baseball days, because baseball is very statistics oriented. But it's also something that, some of those stats in fighting, Bobby, they don't really fucking matter. There's some of the, you could throw 1,000,001 numbers up on the screen to try to drive, but that's really, in a lot of sense with sports media, statistics help drive a narrative. So if you have a point that you're trying to get across, and especially the worst thing that you could ever be when you're on a broadcast or in some sort of format like a pre-fight trying to hype something up, is to leave the people indifferent, to leave someone as, it could go either way. So in my world, I think of it as, okay, well, I can learn some certain statistics to where there may be someone who has an exact counterpoint for, if I'm arguing for, say, like last week, me and Josh went back and forth for a little bit with Marlon Vera and Rob Font, just with a couple of things. But I just had an entire clip full of ammo talking about some of the things that Cheeto brings to the table. And yeah, it just, you can figure out enough things to kind of help tell your story. And for me, I don't know, to say like how many hours that I put in, that's tough to call, because I'm always kind of watching.
That's what
fight
I was getting at. If
or
it was
always
endless,
in the mix.
like if you're just.
But I'm just such a martial arts nerd and a fight fan as a whole, and then in my own training down at Factory X, whether it's learning something hands-on, watching and learning from sparring, judging sparring, seeing some of the best in the world all the time also helps with that knowledge base. But I also don't see it as, or I don't necessarily, I guess, log the hours in my mental time clock, if you will, just because I love it. I don't see it necessarily in that regard.
So you're not dedicating like, I'm going to do this for 6 hours a day or something like that. It naturally happens because this is your passion, right?
It just kind of naturally happens in large because it's my passion. No, if we're talking getting close to a show that I'm doing commentary for, sometimes it's tough on these local shows because there's some of these guys who don't have any fights, or they're just barely getting their feet wet in the fight game. So maybe that's taking, a few hours through those weeks leading up to fight night, once those matchups are all set and finalized, just to maybe kind of, scour their social medias here and there to kind of pick up a little nugget in that meantime. Some of them don't even know how to find, because obviously, people could have whatever name that you want to throw in out there, or they won't have their actual, name that's listed on, say, like the Tapology billing. It'll be, a shortened version of their name. It could be that, all right, they're listed on the card as Robert Marshall, but they're registered on, say, like Instagram as, Bobby Marshall, or they're on there, or it could just be, that they're B Marshall or something, you know what I mean? Like, to where you can't necessarily always search them, or I might not know until it's like leading up to that fight when they start tagging and sharing the promotion stuff as well. So that's a little bit of a challenge here and there. But I've also, I feel like, done enough due diligence through the years of building rapport and relationship through some of the other different local gyms, teams, and coaches all throughout the.
Yeah, I was wondering that if you talked to like some of their, coaches or whatever, training partners while they were in their camps, just to kind of get a feel of.
Some, yeah, and then some of them, you also, but that's where also, Bob, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt at times because they're going to do what they need to do. You know what I mean? And I should say they're going to do what they should do. They're propping their guy up. They're saying, oh, yeah, man, like this kid he's going to bring something special to the cage. He's going to be a kid who's a problem out here on the amateur scene. That's what they should be saying. That's their fighter. That's their teammate. That's the guy that they're in the training room with every day. That's
you
what
truly
they should
have
be
to
saying.
believe in him, right? For him to believe in himself, I would imagine, too. So some of that is.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I say, some of it, you have to take it with a little bit of a grain of salt, but then there's also, I have some very close and trusted people out there that I could say, like, hey, man, like, what kind of medal does this dude have? Like, because there could be a lot of guys who have skills, but is it a difference of, do you have that dog in you? Because there's, and it's tough to say, and I don't ever mean to.
It's a tough sport to predict, man.
Right. Yeah. As soon as you get hit, everything can change. There's been countless guys that I've seen in the gym or have known throughout the years who, I mean, you watch them in training or you see them hit pads or, whatever in that respect, and especially, their strength and conditioning training, whatever, they're a specimen, they're a freak, they look really good in that regard. But then it's always a difference of what happens once you finally get hit. It's just like Mike Tyson himself says, everybody has a plan until they get hit in the fucking mouth. And but that's real though, Bobby. Yeah. It's a big deal
it's so
that,
true, man.
once you find, especially there could be some guys who, maybe you do have a little bit of skill and you get through those first few amateur fights relatively unscathed. You don't ever get a cut. You don't get rocked. You never really have to face some real adversity. Maybe you don't get put into too deep of waters. But then eventually
you're just some asshole
guy.
sitting behind Mike Tyson in first class talking shit.
Bro, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Jeremy, did you see that video? Or did you send it to me? You might have sent it to me.
I think I sent it to you. There was
what was the full story with
not a whole lot of happy days these days, but man, did that make my day.
Right?
That dude
Apparently
had it
that
coming.
guy was kind of a tool bag in the first place. Like the dude
100%.
had a record, I guess, as it was.
Oh, really?
Like so I mean, by the sound of it, it wasn't the first time that this dude has had some run-ins with the law and some incidents. But apparently the dude was drunk. And he was bugging Mike Tyson, and then allegedly, according to Mike's side, he threw a water bottle at Mike or something
big rap
like that.
sheet too.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
yeah. And so,
What do you think's gonna happen, man?
I mean, it's tough because there was video of Mike fucking wailing on the guy. You know what I mean? Like, if there's no video, I guess it's kind of hearsay. Like what really.
So is
happened,
Mike in trouble for that right now? Can we look that up and see what's
Yeah, let me take a look.
going on?
That's a good question.
I
I
don't
stopped
think
following it. It was one of those things that was just like that.
I haven't seen that he was arrested or anything like that. Like,
there was no like legal action that I saw, but maybe
that dude was like over the top of him. Like, you could see in the video that he was antagonizing him the entire time. Personally, I don't think that anything should happen.
No,
Like,
I don't. I think he should have got his ass kicked harder. Didn't even look like it was that bad.
Yeah,
honestly.
no, I mean,
like Mike wasn't throwing like.
he could have done a lot.
Oh,
worse,
he
Bob.
could have murdered that guy. Are
Yes,
you
he
kidding
could have
me?
ate his children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that. I don't know. I look at those situations. There's been a few of them that have popped up in the media recently from some high profile figures.
This is all like from a
But-
week ago, so it doesn't look like.
As a whole,
Yeah, I don't think anything happened.
it looks like
Let's
victim
see,
declines to
okay.
press charges after
Yeah.
being beaten on the plane. Well, good, because that dude probably would have caught some on the outside.
Have you ever been on a plane with a fight break out or?
I haven't. No, I've never.
Let's talk
Knock on
about
wood,
why
seen that.
Mike Tyson's flying JetBlue. That's
They said it was in business class. So I
yeah,
mean,
it was probably it was probably
It
like
looked
that.
like first class seats.
It was, but it it was probably like one of those flights that's serviced by like whatever they're an affiliate or a partner,
Sure.
But I heard he was on a JetBlue flight. I'm like, oh boy, that's rough.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was just like a connection situation
I don't know.
or
A lot of it's
what-
for me. Like I've flown with rock stars on fucking Southwest Airlines. We'll get on Southwest Airlines. We'll get that early boarding pass. But
Yeah,
like,
totally.
there's no first class or anything, and sometimes it's just timing. Like For instance, tomorrow I got to go to Boston, and the best flight out of here was at 4:20. Go figure. On a Southwest flight, like it's a direct. It was just timing. Like United didn't have anything like that, so it's like I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. to go do that, and I got shit I got to take care of here too. We're back to back here, so
yeah.
So yeah, sometimes it doesn't matter what airline, but I try to stay away from like Spirit and shit because you're gonna get more assholes like this
Exactly.
on the plane, and it's commonly people that don't know how to travel.
Frontier.
So, yeah.
Now, I've never had any sort of like altercation experience or seen one of those with any airline.
Yeah.
But have I had a bunch of bullshit with Spirit? Absolutely. Oh my God, Bobby.
I've never actually flown them. I've flown Frontier. Frontier's actually not that bad, I don't think.
I'm not
I don't
a
know.
big fan of Frontier just because I feel like they're deceptive. Like that's
Sure.
what I don't like about them is they'll throw their flight up there when you go to to search for flights, and they'll always be one of the top searches or one of the top options in terms of price and value. But then they nickel and dime you for your bag. They nickel and dime you.
They charge you for a
your
carry-on,
seat.
right? Like,
Yeah,
so
they
if you're a
charge you for a
chick and you got a
carry-on.
purse, it's $25 or some shit, right? Or some shit like that.
If it was just a purse, it would be purse or a backpack. It's considered a personal item, so you don't there. But say you have anything in addition to that.
Yeah, under the seat is fine. But
Okay.
it's like if you're gonna throw something up carry on, you get hit for $25.
Really? So
Dude,
what do they give
piss-
you, a special
they piss
tag or some shit?
They
or?
piss my mom off, which is impossible. The easiest woman in the world, she's just like, well, that's just the way that things are. And she flew out to Denver, Frontier, half-hour diatribe on the way from the airport, just about how unhappy she was with the service. So yeah, they're doing something wrong.
And then the thing that that I don't like about either one of those two. I just flew Frontiers, so by the way, so this is also part. But the fact that you can't recline the chairs, like that's
Oh, really? They don't-
Yeah, you can't put the chairs back. That's a pain in the ass,
Yeah, they're like
especially if you
racing
have
seats.
Exactly. Like, well, they
Right.
also because they pack you in so tight, like sardine cans in those.
Dude, I'm a
flights.
big dude, so like if I'm not in an exit row or like a bulkhead or something, I am fucking murdered when somebody puts their seat back because it's literally just like diving into my knees and forget about
Right.
pulling out a laptop or fucking doing anything like that.
Yeah, totally. So that's where those drive me kind of insane, and especially because, like, say you want to have one of those exit row seats, or you need to have something where you have a little bit of extra room on a flight like a Frontier. Well, you've got to pay a certain surcharge to be able to have that seat. You don't
Yeah.
just have the opportunity to get. I don't know. I
think all the airlines are doing that now. I guess if you have, but status doesn't mean shit either. I got this impeccable status with all these different airlines, and it doesn't mean shit anymore because there's like 1 million milers or whatever they call them, 1K members, and all this different. There's so many levels, dude. I swear there's like probably 100 people that board the plane before I do, and I've been flying for fucking years, dude, on like charter planes and extra miles and transatlantic and all that sort of stuff, coming from the rock and roll world, that I don't know how the fuck you would get that. I wouldn't even want that status because I know how much time I've spent on an airplane and what it's taken me to get that certain amount of status. And those poor people, man, that's just, you're wasting your life on a fucking airplane. I mean, there's people that do that every week. They hop on a flight and fly around the country or across to fucking
And they're a
England
shit
or
show
something.
right now. Like
Oh
the
my
airlines
God.
across the board are a complete shit show. When I was going back and forth from Jacksonville for UFC 273, 3 of my 4 flights were delayed. And they were different airlines just because it was the cheapest way was by piecing them together from because it was on short notice. Josh took the fight on 9 days, so you had to figure out what's the cheapest way for us to get there and make this happen. 3 out of the 4 flights were delayed, and it was just such a pain. And then the last time that I flew going to a UFC show, it just happened. It was a short notice thing. Yusuf took his debut, Yusuf Zalal, for UFC 247, which was one of the last shows before the pandemic and everything shut down. But that one had to be a Spirit flight because everything else going to Houston on a week's notice was just astronomical and ridiculous. That one was delayed by like 7 hours. They offered me like an $80 voucher. Like, you've got to be absolutely kidding me. I mean, it went back and forth like for a while, and it's like, well, this is all that you're gonna give me? Nah. Yeah. Like, what makes you, first and foremost, what makes you think that I want to go and fly with you again for you giving me just a voucher to fly the next time?
I've been on a plane, and I'm not going to name the airline just because you never know anymore. But
Yeah.
this was a while back. I was coming back from a tour. The tour was ending, and we had a connection in Atlanta to L.A. from, I think we were flying out of Ireland. I can't remember exactly. Somewhere in Europe. And we're taking off from Atlanta, and the fucking engine blew up. Why the back wheels were like, the front wheel was lifting off the ground, and the engine just started like, you felt the plane like start rocking and shit. And I'm gonna admit it, I was on Ambien at the time. So I'm like gazing out the window, you know, I can't sleep on a plane. So the doctors prescribed me Ambien as much time as we spent on planes. So
Right.
I had popped one. I was like, okay, this is perfect. I'm gonna sleep 4 or 5 hours, get off the plane in LA, go home. Hadn't been home in fucking months. And I'm looking out the window, and I think the Ambien was just starting to kick in. And one of the guys from the tour was sitting in front of me, and he was passed out. And I just saw like this orange shit like on the window. I was like, what the fuck? And I was sitting behind the exit row.
Yeah.
So like behind the wing. And it kind of looked like this orange, like flicker, like almost the color of that can on the Jocko Go thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck is that? Am I tripping? Like, close my eyes, shake my head, look out, it's still there. And so I wake the guy up in front of me. I'm like, hey, are you seeing this? And he's like, yeah. It was fire, dude. The whole side of the plane was on fire because the jet fuel was like spewing out of the engine or something. So finally they shut it down. And I'm like, oh, fuck, this is getting real, dude. And the plane was just silent. No screams, no nothing. But we're flying like around the city of Atlanta, like pretty low. And we start seeing like news helicopters and shit show up. Like you could see them outside the windows.
Yeah.
Filming us, you know. Like I'm like, oh, fuck, this isn't good. And the captain popped on. Well, actually, we saw one of the pilots come out of the cabin and start running up and down the aisles looking out that side of the plane. He's like, what did you guys see? And everybody's like, fire, 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 or whatever,
Yeah.
right? So then he went back. So that's never a good sign. When the pilot's out, like, you know, and they're telling you to open your window shades. So we're flying around Atlanta, and the news helicopters start to show up, and I'm like, oh, fuck, man, this is not good. So we were low enough that we still had cell service, and I think this was back, might have been pre-iPhone or something. So I just texted my family, hey, love you guys. That was it, right? Because I was like, fuck, who knows what's going to happen, you know?
Right.
And the plane's
Yeah, that's
not,
scary.
you can tell it's not flying good. It's kind of like, you know, we're flying on one engine. They said, you know, we've had a mechanical issue. We're going to give you guys updates as soon as we know what's up. We need to burn some fuel off so we can get landed safe and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, we're going to do the in-flight briefing again of how to put on your oxygen, and this is how you need to brace
Like
if we
shit
hit,
is going
if we're,
down.
yeah. And everybody was just like nobody panicked. Everybody was just super calm on the flight, including there's little kids on the flight in front of me, and I'm on Ambien to boot. But yeah, we're looking out, and then they flew us out into the fucking country, dude. Like, that's when shit got real. They're like, shit, they're taking us away from the city and the airport. So if we do crash, we don't fucking kill a bunch of people on the ground. So we ended up like landing on the runway. It's all fucking sprayed down, fire trucks everywhere. We had to go down the slide. I mean, we landed safely, thank God. But we
You
had
went
to,
down the slide?
Yeah, we went
Dude,
down
there's
the
almost
slide.
nothing I'd rather see than you jump down the slide on the side of the plane.
all gacked out on Ambien and shit,
Exactly.
half drunk. I think I had a glass of like red wine or some shit. So we get up to the counter of the airline, and everybody's just piled around it, like, you know, kind of pissed off. And the whatever, the gate agent or whatever is like, hey, we're going to get you guys all sorted out. We're so sorry for the inconvenience. There's not a whole lot of flights out today, so just bear with us with the patience. And for the inconvenience, we're going to give you all $100 vouchers. And it was like a collective, fuck you, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I left at that point. I was like, I cannot get it back on another one of this airline's planes.
Right.
I went straight to a different counter. I think I went to United, threw down my own credit card because the tour's paid for my flight home and shit. Right. And I was just like, whatever it takes to get me to LA, and flew back to LA that day. But that was the closest call that I had.
Yeah.
And the whole voucher thing is not a good way to settle it.
No, I totally agree. Like, that's just, I mean, you want to know the quickest way to kind of piss me off, if
Right.
you will. Like,
Yeah, they had to bus us all back. People had foam on their shoes and shit, you know, like nobody knew where their luggage was at. They left their personal items because it was like fuck, I guess they told us we had to get out of the plane quick, so
Yeah.
people left laptops and whatever was in the overheads and shit. So a lot of that shit isn't labeled. Luckily, I had my backpack under the seat, and I was like, fuck that. I'm going to throw that on before I
Yeah, I'd be
jam.
snatching my
But
stuff.
I just left
like,
my bag and everything with
fuck
them.
what
Was
you
like,
thought, I'm
fuck it,
taking
I'm
my
going
shit.
home, dude.
Yeah. Man, that's a terrible experience. Obviously, it's a great thing that you made it through that way. Like,
I don't
can't
think it was as
imagine-
bad, but I think there's all these protocols they got to go through, like when something like that happens.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there's probably a long list of things that they have to do, as far as their safety protocol and everything to make sure that people end up safe, or to minimize what the potential, destruction could be if stuff really does go that far south. But, the airlines in general, like, I feel like we're kind of at their mercy, right?
Oh, 100%.
Like in that situation, like it wreaks havoc on your own personal being, because, say it's a situation of, I'll just relate my own personal experience of those delays. Being delayed that many times through, so UFC 273 wraps up, by the time that it was the latest finish time of any stateside pay-per-view that the UFC has ever had. So that's just strike that one right there for the record.
Yeah, I was up late watching that one.
Yeah, as far as when that one was getting over.
I think I was on the East Coast too. Like,
Yeah, it was in Jacksonville.
yeah.
So then imagine then after that, so I'm there until the press conference ends. And then that short work time right after that, just to make sure that all the immediate media from the interviews, pictures, whatever that stuff gets uploaded, just because, everybody else, whether it's MMA Junkie, MMAfighting.com, ESPN, UFC themselves,
That's
whatever
it.
other outlet, they're all putting out
That's
that
the
content
standard,
and that stuff immediately right then and there. So you've got to get your stuff out too. There's no way around it. You have to be there in the mix, because then otherwise, why would someone want to come to you when it's already been out on the bigger platforms? It's going to probably hit their algorithm faster, right? So you've got to try to put it out there and be as quick as possible. But then after, we get out of the arena, say like 3:30ish around in there, give a little holler to the boys back at the hotel, like, hey, you guys still up? Like, you guys still up and about? And Josh and Vince were like, yeah, come through, come hang out. And so at that point, because they all had to leave early on in the morning, my Airbnb was a little bit of a situation, Bobby.
Right.
So
You never know what you're going to get. It looks great on paper, but then
Yeah,
you get there, it's like, God damn it.
Yeah.
This is a shithole.
Yeah, especially down in Duval, it can get
Yeah,
a
okay.
little bit wild in
Sure.
Jacksonville. But yeah, so didn't want to go back and deal with going there in the middle of the night type of situation, and went back and just hung out with the guys at the hotel until they had to leave a couple hours later. But then I then go to the airport a little bit after all of them get there and get ready to go through, just resting for a couple of hours after I get on that first flight. But then it gets told that it's delayed. So, my thing is, I wouldn't have been able to sleep very much. Like, I got a little bit of like a nap there initially in the airport, but then it's all right, well, I don't want to take the chance that I fall into a deep sleep and then I don't wake up and miss the flight then.
I've done that before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting right there at the gate, and I would hope that someone would be courteous enough to wake me up, but you know how that can be.
Yeah.
So at that stage, before I even get on the first flight, probably awake close to like 30 hours on end. And so then, okay, you get on the flight. All right, well, a couple of hours of sleep for the first leg of the travel. Then get to the next airport and supposed to have, just a couple of hours worth of a layover. So, okay, this will be fine then. Going to get back on the plane, get back to Denver at a decent hour, be able to sleep in my bed nice and early, get going for the next week. Didn't happen.
Delayed again, huh?
Got delayed again.
That's why I only fly direct now. I'm like, fuck that. I'll wait around all day or whatever. I'll get in at midnight. Direct's the only way I go anymore.
Yeah, it's so much nicer to go direct, but also that being said, on short notice, finding something direct is a lot more expensive in that way.
And a lot of
times,
times, I got to be clear about this. I'm not doing it on my own dime, too. It's through a production or something like that, so.
Yeah, and it's with going into, and it's not as big of a deal if you're going into big airports, right? Like if you're going to, like a like LAX or to Las Vegas or some of those big airports or big cities, you're going to have a lot of options, especially on the direct site.
Yeah, if you're going to Kalispell, Montana, you got to make a connection somewhere.
Or like Jacksonville. Jacksonville's a very small airport overall. Most flights you either got to you connect out of Orlando, you connect out of
I think I've
Atlanta.
flown to Orlando and then drove just because I'm like, fuck it, I don't want to take the connection.
In retrospect, I would have done that, just knowing that, because I in the end, I flew down to Fort Lauderdale initially, and then there was a massive delay on my flight that was supposed to connect me from Fort Lauderdale up to Jacksonville. And so I just went to, once I got the notification of that it was going to be delayed for like hours from that point, I went straight to the rental car counter, got a rental, and drove the 5 hours up to Jacksonville from there.
Traveling's a bitch, dude. It sucks.
But it was just like, man, like I could either bite the bullet and drive up right now, and then, you know, like I wasn't planning on renting a car for the week while I was down there.
That's fucking expensive. That's more expensive than the flights now.
Yeah, that's gotten
crazy.
so absurd. Like, Bobby, I used to be able to rent a car for $29.99 a day. That special, that weekend getaway
dude.
special
like a weekly
that they had
rate's
for
like $700-800 now.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
You know, you would, and especially like you mentioned with some of these different companies that, you know, you have your rewards, or, you know, you've been around for so long. Like, what does that mean with a lot of them so much anymore? Because I was a part of like the, you know, the enterprise rewards member or that sort of stuff.
We're so funny as fucking humans, because you dangle a little carrot like that, like, oh, you're going to get this for free. People will chase those rewards, or they're only booked with that company. I mean, I'm guilty of myself. Like, I only fly with certain airlines because I have status with them.
Right.
Because I don't want to have to deal with the lines, or I like getting on the plane when I get on. I like being able to have a spot to put my bag, you know, like,
and some of
it's
them,
the little things.
It doesn't even need to be free, but give me a little bit of something for the, you know, the customer loyalty through the years, or for continuing to book through you, or even at that, just having what I reserved available. There was one time where we were getting ready to hit the road to go out to a Bellator show. And I mean, it's pretty easy process most of the time. Like, I mean, anybody who's reserved a rental car online, like, you choose the time that you want to pick it up, the location that you want to pick it up at, the class of the car that you want to be able to have for the time. Usually it's a pretty easy process. You go, you show up, they give you the keys, you do the quick little pre-inspection, you go all the way around the car, like, hey, like, all right, well, there's a little nick here, like, make sure that you're not dinging me on my deposit, blah, blah, blah. Sign the waiver for the $200 deposit that they, or the temporary hold that they put on there, incidentals, all that junk, and then you're on your way. It's usually a pretty easy process, right?
Do you check the trunk when you rent a rental car now?
I haven't before. But
okay, because this is a thing. This is a little tidbit here. Start checking the trunks, because it's a thing for people to piss in the trunk of their rental car for some reason. Like, it's some sort of weird thing. So, like, I've opened multiple rental car trunks where you throw your bags and shit, and it smells like a fucking urinal cake, dude. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't know. It's a weird thing. I don't know what would possess it. I don't know why it's a fucking deal, but look this up, Jeremy. See if I'm wrong, but
like, maybe it's a thing.
I don't know. Is it like a drunk thing?
Like,
you even search rental car piss?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, on a logical side, I'm trying to put this together here. So maybe it's
there's
because
much better things that we could talk about, but this is something that I do. Like, you know,
this
if
is
you
one
go
of
to
those
National,
like hits
like,
blunt type of thoughts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't think they ever clean the trunk. Oh,
yeah,
shit. What do we got going on here?
Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah, naughty pissing.
Yeah. That's a little bit of a different lane there. But I guess maybe if you're pulled over, it looks a little bit less discreet. That it may look like trunk. You're like looking in your trunk and you're kind of like leaned over into it, as opposed to being like on the side of the road, like with. I mean, you know, when someone's standing next to their car taking a leak.
But check it out the next time, and you'd be surprised how many are like, oh nope, not that one. Somebody pissed in the trunk of that motherfucker.
Wow.
Yeah,
I did not know that was a thing. I will definitely be on alert for that the next time.
I don't know, it's a thing, dude. Yeah.
I thought you were going to tell me something like, you know, like some trafficking or something, like, you know, like people left dope in the
I'm
trunk.
sure that happens too.
Oh, I'm sure.
I've gotten in plenty of rental cars that smell like weed. I was like, damn,
they all do.
Am I muling some shit right now? Because like, for like over a week, you know, I've had a rental car like in New Jersey and stuff. I'm just like, well, okay, where's it at, dude? Like, this is not like old stale smoke smell either. This smells like some fresh, good fucking chronic.
Yeah, like there's something that there's raw flour in here. Yeah.
It's somewhere in here.
Yeah, no, I mean, That though alone, like I did get charged one time, so I try to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't. I felt like it was something that I probably could have disputed, but it was before it was like such an arm and a leg sort of thing. But they said that, it smelled like. I don't think that it probably did, but they probably just figured, this guy came from Colorado, sort of like I'm gonna go with you.
The Colorado stigma.
You stereotyped me,
Sure.
you discriminated upon me from my state of residence.
And maybe I was,
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Hey, that's something that they're doing now. I was actually looking. I got hit up to invest in a 420 hotel because a lot of the hotels that you go to, especially if you're in a state that's legalized, and we get a lot of tourism here because of it. So in Denver, they're opening some 420 friendly hotels where you can smoke in your room. Because a lot of these major hotel chains, you can't. You get doxxed, or you get kicked out of the hotel, or you get the cops called on you, or whatever. And I was like, this is fucking genius, dude. Because think about how many people are paranoid on pot.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And
they don't want to leave the hotel. And then you put a dispensary in the bottom of it, and a restaurant.
Right.
You're fucking killing it, dude. Nobody's going to leave that place.
I mean, I think it's an idea that's almost taken too long to come to fruition, since legalization is but I understand the argument on both sides for not wanting to have, it's just so heavily concentrated, but I don't know, I'm a believer in the free market on that side of things. Like, if there's a market for it, then people should be able to have a place to, if you're willing to go and sit there in that sort of, environment to where, it's probably going to be pretty hazy and smoke saturated. It's going to be a complete Jamaican hot box throughout the entire establishment. But if you go in there,
to a Cypress Hill concert, and
you're
checking into your hotel, right?
But you know that you're going into that environment, right? So I don't know. I feel like if I just don't believe in
probably makes it okay
people.
For you to be an idiot too,
Yeah, I mean, but I also I would argue then that we don't have any data or any sort of sample set to compare it to, but are you going to have more issues than you would have at a bar with people drinking alcohol?
Hell no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for the most part, hungry, happy, sleepy.
Yeah.
That's going to be your general, your general rundown.
I think it's a great idea. A place where you can't get busted for being happy, sleepy, hungry either. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or kicked out.
Mm-hmm. And in general, it's not going to be, it's not going to be a place for everybody, even within the cannabis community as a whole.
It's not a place where you bring your family on vacation, right?
No. No, and as a whole too, the cannabis community there are people now, especially with the widespread of decriminalization and legalization across the states. There's only a few that it's not legal in at this point. There's people from nearly every walk of life that have a connection in some capacity.
Right. Is it legal in every state now? Can we look that up? I don't even know. I mean, it's been a while. I think that there's only a couple left.
There's definitely holdouts, but
there's some.
Utah's probably one.
It's hard to get 10 years for a joint these days, no matter where you're.
Right.
No matter where you're.
I know it's still.
But just look up maybe
Florida, just from
how many states can you buy it medically, because medical is easier to get than recreational, right? Or there's more states that have medical.
There's more states that have medical than recreational, for sure. That's usually the first stage.
You know what's crazy too is I wonder how many people travel.
Looks like 39.
I wonder how many people travel outside of these cities that are legal with weed to cities that are, I'm
not going on record, but can it be done? The thing
can.
overall.
But do you get in trouble when you land? What if you get caught with that?
Dude, I know a guy who flew into Beijing with an ounce.
Oh, that's a big fucking deal.
He
dude.
doesn't give a fuck. And you look at him, and you go, "That's a man who's traveling with marijuana on him." He looks the part, he smells the part. And even the Chinese are just like, yeah, go ahead.
Well, places like Singapore and stuff, when we were on tour with rock bands, they would hire a company that would help escort us into Singapore or whatever through customs and everything. They get on the flight with us. They spoke the language. They would take all of our backpacks. You took all the belongings out of your backpacks. You fucking put them on your table or whatever, or put them in a safe spot. They put them in a bag. They would take your backpack and dry clean it, because if there's any sort of residue, Tylenol PM is a narcotic there. Like,
oh shit,
you get in serious trouble.
Yeah.
I think it's same with
it's
Abu
legal in
Dhabi,
Thailand,
like
too.
yeah, Middle East is.
Oh yeah,
like
some of
no
the like Abu
big
Dhabi,
fucking
Dubai,
deal, dude.
Yeah,
You can't have Tylenol PM
Wait, this
or
is-
anything like that, you
this
know.
is
And that shit you can
2021.
go down to Walgreens and buy the shit out of, you know.
yeah. That's I don't. I mean,
It's crazy.
I know that it's crazy still that in we're like, it's crazy that it's not completely legalized federally here in the state, but there are places to where it's very heavily criminalized just for even a small amount.
Right.
Like some of those countries over there on that side of the world, and, I
Or
mean,
zero tolerance. Like, I don't even
Yeah.
think some of those countries you can be drunk in public.
It's like some real like Midnight Express type of shit.
oh yeah,
Like that's still, to me, like some of those scenes of that movie, like those things fucking haunted me for life, bro.
Yeah.
Like that's a movie that maybe not a lot of people remember, but like you
that was
remember
like the '80s, right? And who the fuck was in that?
I honestly don't remember. I know
Jeremy,
that it
let's
was
look
either
this
like
up. Midnight Express.
late 80s,
Yeah,
early
that
90s,
was-
whatever.
I think,
But
no, I think it was older than that.
yeah, it
Is
might have
it?
been earlier than that. Yeah, that 1978. Okay,
Bro,
yeah.
speaking of '80s movies, we did that podcast last week with Brandon Wheeler. He's over in Ukraine, and he's there doing some research for, to see who has our best interests in American interests, freedom interests. And my buddy Luke that we've had on the podcast, shout out to Luke Pilgrain, was over there. He's a photographer, and he took some just fucking incredible photos while he was over there. I think it's Photo Bucket List. But there was this tank that was blown up, and somebody had spray painted Wolverines on it from Red Dawn.
Okay.
Like, I thought it was fucking
Wait, that
cool,
was him
dude.
that took that photo?
Yeah, that was Luke that took
Fuck
it.
out of there.
Yeah,
That's-
he
that's gone
was over
everywhere.
there. Oh yeah,
Yeah, I've seen that picture all over
Yeah,
the
it was
place.
awesome.
I didn't realize he took it. Yeah,
Yeah,
here you go.
We'll have
Here's
to
your,
pull.
here's your
Oh, okay. This is the states that
black
are
is legalized.
okay. So Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico's legal.
Yep,
Texas
they
is
just
still
went-
holding out, huh?
Yeah, Texas
CBD
is-
with THC only is the gray states. So there's some form of it there. And then fully illegal. Idaho. Really? I wouldn't guess that. Wyoming kind of makes sense. Nebraska. And what's
No,
that?
it's not
South
Nebraska,
Carolina?
That's Kansas.
Yeah, that's Kansas.
Oh, it is Kansas. Okay.
And then South Carolina.
What's the difference?
I mean, South
Except
Carolina,
James
they're
Krause
like-
is in one of them. Is that South Carolina down
Yes.
there? Okay. So Midnight Express. Here we go. So 1978. Damn,
Yeah, 1978.
we were way off.
Yeah, I was definitely off on that. I mean, it's in black and white, so I guess it's kind of hard to.
Right. I
Hard
didn't
to
realize
judge in that
Brad
way, but-
Davis was that
Or Randy
old.
Quaid.
Or Randy Quaid. Yeah.
But yeah, that movie had some very haunting scenes
Graphic.
graphic, all the above, or just then the thought of like, okay, well, all the guy had was a little bit of hash that he went across the border with.
Right. Which was a big
Hash.
deal.
Like, we're not talking. He wasn't taking like opiates or anything like that. Like, we're talking fucking hash here. And so yeah, like I don't know. But in terms of here stateside, I can say this at least, that, and just from knowing a fair amount of people who travel to people in that sort of world, they're not looking for weed. Like, TSA is not looking for cannabis in that regard, unless
Right.
you're coming through and,
Your
like,
suitcases jam packed full of it.
right, unless you're making it ridiculously obvious in that regard. Like, I mean, if you're taking an eighth with you, or if you have a couple little joints that you have rolled up that's in your carry-on bag that you're
Enough
going
for
through,
one person for a week.
yeah,
right?
like that's they're not going to bust you for that typically, and especially someplace like here in Denver where it's decriminalized and recreationally legal anyway. At worst, they're typically just going to tell you to throw it away. Also, in turn, and this is just anecdotally, I don't know this part from experience. I've heard from a lot of people that they'll just tell you to throw it away because it takes them that much more time, effort, and resources to then get the law enforcement involved and have to go through the paperwork of a report and all that. They'll just take it and throw it there.
Isn't there a special trash can or something at DIA where you're supposed to
I think
I
that,
don't know.
I've seen
never
that
thrown
at
anything in
other-
there, but
yeah, I mean, again allegedly,
I'd like to
I
know
have
where
no,
it all
I don't
goes,
know
you know?
anything about that world, but
hell yeah. So let's talk about was it UFC 278?
274 this weekend.
Is it 274? Okay.
Yep.
See, this is why you're the expert.
UFC 274 this weekend. Man, it's going to be such an incredible card. I feel like it's got a lot of great matchups, and I mean, there's even
I
some on
cannot
the
wait
undercard
to
that
see the
people
Oliveira,
Oh my god,
Justin Gaethje. Like,
It's one of those things though too, where I have a little bit of mixed feelings and a little bit of saltiness to it too,
Sure.
with some of the way that the card is, because right now, I mean, and some of it is a certain bias because he's one of my friends' training partners, have trained under him. He's one of our black belts at the gym, and Brandon Raw Dog Royval. That's a top contender matchup in the men's flyweight division.
I wanted to get to that too. So
That is on the prelims as of now,
why is that not on the main card?
because Cowboy and Joe Lozon is on the main card. They brought Joe Lozon out of retirement so Cowboy could fight him to maybe hopefully get a win and ride off into the sunset for him.
Right.
That's a tough matchup. Joe Lozon is a live dog. I don't give a fuck what fight you put Joe Lozon in. He's going to go out there and he's going to scrap. Then in the second fight, you have Shogun taking on OSP. Again, you have a couple of guys who are very much so in
Here
the
we
twilight.
go. Jeremy's got it pulled up too. Let's start. Where do you want to start? Want to start on the main card?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can just run up through these two right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be, I mean, you got to give the love and the respect to Shogun because he's
Dude,
a legend.
Michael
but
Chandler,
at the
Tony
same time,
Ferguson.
yeah, that's a matchup that, I mean, that one is certainly one that, as a fan, if you were to take the name value, it's a little bit tougher for me to really dive in or have the same full allure as what it might have been, say, 2 years ago with Tony prior to him fighting Justin
I agree.
Gaethje. Even say if, okay, the Gaethje fight happens, whatever, that might have been just a one-off. If it would have been the next fight after that, then I'd have been that much more hyped from, okay, he's going to come back in and he's going to be with the guy who's going to also push the pace. And if we know anything about El Kukui, we know that he's got one of the best gas tanks out there, and he's a guy who
Incredible.
will just scramble until the position is secured and do whatever it takes by any means necessary. But it's also with some guys, Bobby, that age cliff comes at different points. Tony's now in his late 30s, and he left a lot of himself in there in that fight with Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje, I mean, and if we're also being fair to really put the true cards onto the table, I think it's fair to say that Tony hasn't looked completely the same ever since he tripped on the wire, since he tripped on that cable and shredded his knee. Yes, did he come back and TKO Anthony Pettis in that next fight? Sure. Did he have a good fight against Cowboy? Sure. But along that run of Cowboys, this decline of Cowboy, if you will, who hasn't had a good night against him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And then you start to look, and then, man, like we all wanted to see that matchup so bad of the Khabib and Tony. That's the most cursed matchup ever in MMA history, in my opinion. 5 times it was booked, 5 times it doesn't happen. He then takes the gamble there, takes the fight with Justin Gaethje.
Who doesn't leave something in the ring with Gaethje, man?
Right.
Fucking murder.
But then the next fight, he goes out there and he gets the screws put to him by Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's now 2 in a row where Tony just really wasn't able to mount any sort of offensive game plan. All right, back to back, it's tough, but also 2 of the best guys in the world that we're looking at, and obviously then Charles goes on to become the champion in his next fight following that. So we're going to take a step back in the rankings there. We're going to fight Beneil Dariush. Well, you go and you fight Beneil Dariush, and you get dominated again for another 15 in that regard. So, it's tough to see for someone who's been, like, I've always been a big fan of Tony. And, it was always one of those things of being one of the hardcore fans that, yes, Tony should be getting this title shot. It comes out later on that, there's some of his personal life situations were probably explaining factors while he was on that dozen-fight win streak why he didn't get a title shot early on. But, again, like, and that's not to put, to recircle the negative aspects with Tony, but you know, like,
No, I get exactly what you're saying there, though.
There was a reason why I feel like now that we didn't have the knowledge of back then, but that we know now why he didn't get a title shot during that time frame. If just to simply put it there without going too deep into those details or that rabbit hole. Going up from that, then we have Thug Rose Namajunas taking on Carla Esparza. That's a rematch from the inaugural title fight for the women's strawweight division that originally came about at the conclusion of Tough 21 way back in the day. It was either Tough 20 or Tough 21, I can't remember, but that was what the inception of the women's strawweight division was. And Carla, obviously, she was able to get the best of her the first time around and was the first champion of that division.
But Rose is so different now, right? I mean,
exactly. That's the big point.
She's a different level of fighter now. Like,
she's
it's just
on another level.
There's nobody for her. It seems like.
And
we'll see,
don't get me wrong, because Carla's going to be a tough match, and Carla is going to be a tough matchup because she wrestles so well. That's going to be the big thing, is if Rose is able to maintain her range and use her distance wisely, use those tools to keep Carla away from the body lock and just basically smothering her, she's going to be okay. She's going to be just fine. But, you know, it's one of those things that Carla's in that position for a reason too. Like, she's on a run of her own. She's won a bunch of fights in a row, so you have to give her that respect that she's going to come in there and be a dog just the same. But personally, I just don't see it. I don't see the title exchanging hands in this one with Rose. And then in the main event, you have the human highlight reel. You have Justin Gaethje taking on Charles do Bronx Oliveira.
The fucking trailer for that they did such a good job with that.
Oh yeah,
fucking amazing,
incredible,
dude. Yeah.
Incredible. And that one to me,
let's not forget Gaethje held the belt just, what was it, last year? Or
he did, and you know, just, and this isn't to slight the belt that he had, but it is fair to mention that it was just the interim title.
Sure.
Because Khabib was the champion. The only reason why Khabib didn't fight on that UFC 249 card in that May was because that's when Abdulmanap had just fallen ill, and then shortly thereafter had passed away. So I think it's still fair to say that, yes, he beat everybody else except for the sitting champ who couldn't take the fight at the time, which is fair for an interim title circumstance, because you didn't know how long he was going to be, what was his grieving process, was he going to come back. You have to do something at that point as the promotion. So in that sort of instance, I agree with making that an interim situation.
And that was a great fight too. I mean,
he was a couple of leg kicks away from Justin taking that a completely different direction as far as the fight goes. But also, I mean, you know, that you can't take anything away from Justin in that, and he was all the way there, and he did have 12 pounds of gold, albeit interim, wrapped around his waist. Very few people in the history of the UFC, just coming up upon 30 years this in November of 2023, it'll be 30 years old. There's very few people, whether interim or undisputed gold, have ever had that honor. So that's not to take it away by any means.
Yeah.
But again, you know, if Charles does pull this off, that's going to circle back the questions once again of, man, like, we would have loved to see that styles clash of Charles and Khabib that just never really happened. And I don't think that Khabib's coming back. I don't think that there's anything that'll be able to bring him back.
He's definitely the GOAT, man. He's proved that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's the GOAT, but if we're talking a guy who was one of the most dominant, like, I guess it's maybe like, if
in
you
that
compare
division,
it to,
you would say, though, for sure, right? In that weight class.
It's tough because to me, like, I gotta give recognition to BJ Penn. I mean, if you talk early BJ Penn, early BJ was a flat-out murderer. And BJ Penn, for that matter, especially back then, yeah, he was a lightweight, but BJ didn't care what weight he had to fight at. He fought Lyoto Machida at heavyweight back then at that time just to take the fight, just because of the spirit of the warrior. And especially saying that he was, he went and won Abu Dhabi within only a couple years worth of training. He got a black belt within, I think it was sub 3 years, might have been like 18 months, something like that. Jeez. One of the fastest black belts ever. He was the prodigy for a reason, Bobby. Yeah. So it's tough for me not to give recognition to BJ. Obviously, the latter stages of his career kind of soured that thought with a lot of people, but what he was able to do in his championship run in prime, it's tough not to give him some love. But yeah, as far as just pure dominance, it's hard not to give Khabib that sort of recognition. My only counter to that is that Khabib didn't have enough defenses if we're talking in relation to some of the other who I personally consider are your all-time greats. If you're looking at John Jones, whether anybody wants to criticize John for all the different asterisks in the world, because there's a lot of them, but the fact of the matter is...
Not to mention the shit he did outside the ring, right?
Right, and that's what I mean. And all the stuff on the outside, people bring a lot of external circumstances to their judgment of John sometimes and don't just look at what he's done with his body of work. If you look at who John's beat throughout his career, absolute legends. Look what he did to Shogun back in the day to win the title, to become the youngest champion ever in UFC history. Nobody has broken that record still to this day. That's something that I take into account, all the title defenses and the prestige of the guys that he's fought. Then you look at someone like Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva had that run of 16-0 to start in the UFC before he finally had his first loss. Had how many different title defenses throughout that time against top of the food chain guys that they were throwing at him left and right, and he made it look easy through a lot of that time. And then you have your guys like Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse, until he finally lost to Henry Cejudo that final time, at 25, there was nobody that was really giving him anything. Did he have a couple of losses earlier on in his career to guys like Dominic Cruz, all that? Sure. But that was still arguably a top 10 fight of all time, but that was also at bantamweight. Once you brought him down to flyweight, his run of dominance is, it's proof in the pudding. Like that's historic for a reason. And then obviously the one that a lot of people turn to is then George St. Pierre. Those guys all just had so many more title defenses than Khabib, so it's hard for me to, on the overall all-time list, put him above those guys. And I say it also because most of those guys
all the
in
different
past,
styles too, man. Like
right? And they cleared out divisions. Yeah. You know what I mean? They cleared out their divisions throughout their career, and they were able to do so by having so many title defenses. And it's not to slight him, it's not to disrespect him, it's not to devalue anything that his legacy has done or had, but there were still matchups left out there for Khabib. There were people like Charles who they talked about, like, man, like this guy is a potential kryptonite stylistically.
I'd like to see him run it back with Gaethje, honestly, again too, if he came back.
Yeah, that's another tremendous matchup in that regard. And then for the most part, most of those other names of guys that I gave you, they had, or maybe not. They didn't all like have multiple title defense. But John is moving up to heavyweight. If John goes up and wins at heavyweight, I think you got to call him the GOAT. If Henry, but also, fuck man, Henry Cejudo. If Henry Cejudo comes back and wins it at 45, how do you not call Henry the GOAT? Having 3 different belts, I just don't think the UFC politically will want to give him that sort of power. But you had George St. Pierre who goes away. Suspicious circumstances why he went away at the time.
Comes down to fitting the narrative too, right? Yeah.
And he wins at 85. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Like, I just think that some of the overall long-standing legacy elements from some of those other guys surpass what Khabib did. Khabib, okay, I'll give you this. This is something that maybe the masses can maybe sink their teeth into for the analogy a little bit more. In the NBA, arguably you could say the most dominant player ever in history was Shaquille O'Neal, right? Like in his prime.
Sure.
Like that few years of like when they won they win 3 in a row.
Was it? Yeah. Was it Phoenix or Orlando? I don't know. I'm not an NBA fan.
It was with the Lakers. It was when he was with Kobe.
Okay. Yeah.
But those like 3 years in the late 90s, early 2000s. But a dude who was 7 foot, 7'1", somewhere in there, just over 300 pounds, like 10% body fat, athletic as hell, fast, could just dominate.
Also
anybody.
A martial artist.
Right, also a martial artist, but someone who could just, he was that immovable object. He was the unstoppable force as well as the immovable object. He was undeniable whenever you put the rock in his hand. There's a reason why he had the MVPs and whatnot in the finals that he did. But overall, in terms of longevity, he did not sustain that high level of production of, like 30 points, 30 rebounds a night throughout the entirety of his career. But through that run of his prime, just kind of like, or another fight analogy, somebody like Kane. In that short window when Kane was Kane, nobody fucked with him. Yeah. And still to this day, I don't know if there's another heavyweight out there whose legacy compares to what, in that run, he was able to do at his most dominant point.
Don't you think that you also have to take into consideration that the UFC has become such a more well-oiled machine, if you want to call it that or whatever, that guys are smarter now. They're not going into it super young in their career. They're coming in when they're seasoned, experienced, and ready to actually come in and compete.
Yes and no. For some guys, I feel like they take the opportunity too early. There's a fair
That's
amount
what I
of
was
guys
getting at.
out
Like those
there.
early days, like I
And
think some of those guys.
even still now today, I think that there's a lot of guys that, because you never know if that call's going to come later on. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, to be completely fair. And I don't necessarily blame them. There's very few guys that have that sort of support system or have that sort of skill set base to where that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. For some guys, it's a thing of like, I may never have this shot again. So, I may be, 25, 26, somewhere in there. I only have maybe, 7 fights on my pro career, whatever in there. But Contender Series call comes. Short notice call to get signed and fight on a UFC card comes. Are you going to say no to that? Because that call may never come again, especially
Right.
if you decline it for anything other than like, I'm legitimately hurt and injured.
Or you take an L. It's like
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's the thought for a lot of guys though too. Is like, yeah, I'll come in and I'll take that L just to get in, to
Right.
get in. I'll come in, and even for that matter, like, fuck it, 10 grand, I'll get sparked, but I'm in. I got signed.
Is that the fight minimum?
That's usually what most guys start at, is 10 and 10.
Can you tell me about Rogan in IU or something, or whatever this fucking Bitcoin shit is that's going around?
I don't know enough about it to speak on it. I know that I don't think it's
trying to
anything
figure it out.
directly involved with him, but I do know that it's Marshall Inu, and that's
what it is. Yeah.
that's helping out a lot of fighters. I do know that they have paid out, but I don't know. I know that there's some certain like legalities and how it has to be talked about and all of that. So I don't want to go too far down that, because I don't know what we actually can talk about and say in that regard without us potentially being in the crosshairs.
Sure.
Because we had to go through, or at least I shouldn't say
But they're
we, but
essentially
the guys had to
they
go
are
through a
giving
whole
that
talk
money
track.
to fighters that are coming up in the ranks, right? That are not getting it or matching.
Yeah, from
fight bonuses,
a
that sort of
broad strokes point of view, yes, they're helping with, think of it just essentially as like, it's a big sponsorship.
Mm-hmm.
Think like back in the day, Zions threw a lot of money toward people, or, Condom Depot, whoever else out there that was, what? Yeah, you're fighting on this card? Okay, boom. Well, here, we're going to slap our logo on
It's
you.
just crazy to me that the UFC isn't looked at the same level as like professional football or something like that, right? Like, I mean, I understand it, but as far from a money scale, like, I think the league minimum is, I think it's like $375,000 or something.
It's
if you're
closer
playing
to
in the
500
NFL.
grand in the NFL. I know that much. In the NHL, that's the highest. That's at like 800,000 for the league minimums.
But to be a full-time fighter, and if you're even in the UFC in the top 25, right, you're still struggling.
Yeah,
with a
but you have to
decent
think of it
salary.
from this standpoint, though, too, at least fiscally or from the finance end, is that, just like we mentioned, the UFC has been around for less than 30 years.
Right.
The NBA has had, this year I think was like their 75th year, somewhere around in there. The NFL's had more than 100 years. Major League Baseball's been around for more than 100 years. NHL, I'm sure it's close to 100, if not more than 100 years since it's been around. So their reach or their fan base is much deeper, and especially when you're talking on a global scale, merch sales, all of those things. As a whole, I don't think that fighting will ever be as big as one of the big four, and that's just because there is that certain element of, it's brutality. Like, there's no there's no way to sugarcoat it. Like,
Not everybody can watch it.
right, not everybody can watch it.
There's
and-
times where I'm like, fuck, dude, I can't believe I'm watching this shit right now.
Well, and then also to piggyback off of that, then there's the youth element. So if you look at all of those other sports, kids can go play football, kids can go play basketball, soccer, hockey, baseball, whatever those other sports, and those can be essentially a family-friendly, environment, broadcast, whatever. Even still on an MMA broadcast, there's going to be a fair amount of things that if it's on ESPN that it gets bleeped out, or if you're there live in-house, like, they don't censor fighters that are in their post-fight interview. So you're going to hear a few F-bombs here and there that are let go and let loose. Some parents might not want to put their kids in that sort of situation where, like, you know what, like, yeah, you can watch it on TV, like on ESPN, where we know that, they're going to bleep out all the cuss words and all that. But to go and take you there in person, or to have it unfiltered, I understand.
Doesn't mean that they're going to
aspect.
stop and not show somebody's forehead being opened up or something like that.
That's what I see that, like, okay, like you're you're having a problem, like you're wanting to censor these noises that come out of like the shape that we made with our mouth, but you give zero fucks that you just let your 8-year-old watch this dude get a 3-inch gash open on his forehead and get wailed on. Like,
yeah,
maybe it's a little bit of a different, you know what I'm saying?
Or it's okay to drop elbows on somebody on the ground, or I get that aspect of it too.
There's just certain elements of that I feel like, and in turn, there's a lot of the general public out there that maybe just won't embrace it from the mass marketing scale side.
Sure.
Like I just watched this video, funny that you mentioned it. There's a video from, I believe it was MMA On Point, but it was pacifists reacting to MMA knockouts. And it was a whole different like perspective and view, like, but obviously those people exist, or like there's a large section of the population out there who has that sort of belief set and those ideals, and like, well, I guess like I learned something from watching it, that like there's these people who have like these like insanely visceral, almost emotional reactions.
So
to
what were their
watching it.
reactions?
Some of them, like the lady was like she was almost damn near in tears.
Really?
Yeah, and then one of them, there was one of the guys that by the end he was almost kind of like coming around. Like toward it at the end, because there was the infamous clip of the guy on I don't remember the fighter's name, but it was on a local to regional show where he's kind of like showboating and dancing, then he gets head kick knocked out. It's one of the viral clips of showboating gone wrong. You know which one I'm talking about. Yep. But that guy was like, oh, well, see, he was over there showboating, talking shit. I guess that's what happens.
That's
in
what
this
you
sort
get.
Of situation. Right.
Yeah.
So then after that one, then that guy kind of like started to, this guy right here, this dude who looks like the pirate from Dodgeball. But yeah, this lady, she was absolutely losing it.
What is this, Fight Front? Just to give him a shout out.
Yeah, Fight Front. I think it's a subsidiary of MMA On Point. It's like their English division.
Sure.
But yeah, just some of these people's reactions to him are hilarious. Like, watching the Kyoji Horiguchi knockout from Sergio Pettis right there. Like,
just shocked.
It's hilarious. It's pure shock from some of these people. But again, like maybe to a large sense, Bobby, I'm so desensitized to some of this because I watch so much of it.
I am too.
And even like, I mean,
the fact, like when my wife turns and cringes, right? Because she'll watch it with me. She's like, "Oh my God," and I'm like, "Wasn't even that big of a deal," Like
I get splattered with blood almost every show, or when you're sitting there at the commentary table, like you're right off of the cage. So if you have someone who's leaking and they come over that direction, or even just in general, a lot of times you're getting hit with sweat if they're over against the fence right there. There's just those things. You're in the if you will for the cage, just like when you go to SeaWorld, you're in the splash zone.
Yep.
And my commentary partner Cody Brundage. He's finally, I think the last show he didn't have it, but for the first few, like he kept on forgetting, and he was wearing a white shirt.
Right.
And he was like, and damn it, I did it again. I wore a white shirt.
Dude, I used to shoot professional boxing.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of times I had to clean a camera lens, and I'm talking about a long lens sometimes, right? Like people don't realize how hard those guys are getting hit and how far the sweat flies. And I've never shot UFC. Well, that's not true. I did some, like, I don't know what it was. It was some bullshit at a monster party or something where they brought in some cage fighters or whatever. But
just a little small MMA event.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I can't imagine sitting right there at the desk how much bodily fluid you get hit with, whether it's blood, sweat, or whatever else is coming out, right? So,
and then being in the gym or, and training itself too, I mean, like, yeah, there's no easy
I've had
way
other
to put
people
it, like
sweat
training,
in
like
my mouth, dude. From just rolling, like
sweat, blood,
whatever.
I mean, if you train, like that's just I don't know, like it's a part of it, like it happens.
The one thing I have a hard time watching is somebody break their leg, like when Conor broke his leg, or like the Joe Theismann. I cannot watch people's bones just being destroyed, right? Like that's one thing I'm just like, fuck.
That one definitely is that has a lot of cringe factor to it, like just that
the memes were great though.
Reaction. Definitely.
Like him in his suit in the chair. I don't know if you saw that one. Is like,
hey, to be fair with Conor in that though, how much of and people will rip it, and I might get roasted alive, or people coming at me for this particular statement in that regard. But with Conor in that sense, how much of a badass showman was he that even in that moment right there where his leg is snapped, he was already setting up the next fight. Like he had enough wherewithal in that moment to start talking shit, promoting the next potential matchup, and to say like, oh, like like that's a fucking TKO. That's not a doctor stoppage.
Right.
But in the end,
dude is not gonna.
But Bobby, if you look at the official record, I'm pretty sure they ruled it as a doctor's stoppage.
Are you kidding me?
Yes. So
Wow,
I don't. That's just kind of like the way that he was able to sway and influence the moment right then and there. That he was saying like, "Oh no, I want to go, but they're not letting me go," type of thing, like doctor stoppage. Like he was already promoting the next fight as it was, so that now he could say like, "Oh, I'd have kept on going except for that doctor. They could be, you know what I mean?"
One fucking leg, dude. His leg was completely sideways, man.
Oh, it was. But that's going to be his angle, or he's going to come with that sort of fire, or you're lucky that the mechanical aspect of my body failed. You didn't break me, you didn't beat me, my body failed me. That's going to be that's what Conor's angle is. Yeah. Even though, like, I mean, it was going that direction fucking anyway, maniac, in my opinion. Yeah. But he did so much with that Bobby, the hardcores are still interested in when he's coming back. When is his next fight? Is his next fight going to be Kamaru Usman? Is his next fight going to be Jorge Masvidal? Will it be a Nate Diaz trilogy? Will it be a fourth fight with Dustin Poirier? Somehow the guy hasn't won a fight in how many fucking years, and he's still the talk of the casual fan out there. Us hardcore fans, we're 15% or less of the entire demographic of the fan base. That is the casual audience in that 85+% realm that just keeps on stoking the fire for him. Exactly. And he still is able to be talked about and have people be saying, there's, as hard as it is to believe, he might come back to a title shot.
I know. That's what they were fucking talking about on the list.
How does that happen? But that's
nobody
when
else
you're
would be given that opportunity.
Nobody else. But the only way that you can halfway say is, you know what? This man is, yes, he's the biggest cash cow that you have ever had in history. And you know what? He, on any given night, they're going to sell the shit out of that left hand. They're going to sell that, oh, well, if that left hand connects on anybody, he has the chance of putting him out. Sure, but is he still that same guy? I don't know. That's yet to be seen.
Yeah. That's crazy. So who's fighting from Factory X in this next on May 7th?
So on May 7th we have Brandon Raw Dog Royval, who's going to be fighting on that card. He's he's on the prelims. Obviously I think if something gets shaken up on the main card, if you scroll up, there's going to be an option for you to choose the prelims. Yeah, prelims and early prelims. But he's on that ESPN portion,
which is cool too. I'm glad that they put some good fights on that, because that, all that shit's free and people can go and watch it, So
definitely. I mean, I love that Lupi Godinez fight. Lupi's a sweetheart. I absolutely love Lupi. She's done my show before. She's a former LFA champion. She's came in and she's had, multiple fights now in the UFC, being signed there for less than a year. She had that super gangster move earlier where she turned around on like 11 days and took another fight. Damn. So, I mean, just a true gamer in that way, and is willing to go out there and put it on the line. And then the one that I'm really excited for on this early section of the prelims is Tracy Cortez. I think Tracy Cortez is one of the brightest prospects in that women's flyweight division. In general, it's tough in the women's flyweight division because you have Valentina and everybody else. The gap between her and the rest of the field, I feel like, it's the Grand Canyon. Yeah. She's the greatest women's fighter of all time. People can say Amanda, people can say Cyborg. I don't give a fuck. It is Valentina Shevchenko, and it's hard to say, or in my book, it's hard to argue that she's not the outright most complete mixed martial artist in the game today. If you're talking the all-around skill set that she brings. You can't say that she can't wrestle. She can. You can't say that she can't grapple and be a submission artist, because she will be. You can't say that she's not a knockout artist on the feet. She has one of the craziest head kick knockouts ever in mixed martial arts history when she sparked Jessica Ai. Her Muay Thai, she was a world champion Muay Thai artist when she was a teenager. So you can't say in any sort of... Yeah, she was sparking grown adults when she was like 14 years old. She's traveled all around the world to train, to get some of the best specialized training from different disciplines all the way around the world. She went and lived in South America for a while just to be able to learn and immerse herself in the Spanish culture even more. I mean, if you want to say like there's anybody out there who might be a real life like James Bond super spy, fuck, that's Valentina Shevchenko. She speaks how many different languages? She's an absolute assassin with hand-to-hand combat. She's fascinated with guns. She has a fucking pistol tattooed on her body.
Right.
Her nickname is the Bullet. So you take those things into account. But then, okay, well, you need to go into that black tie affair. Well, she'll dress up clean and she'll clean up nicely. She'll be that elegant woman. She talks about how she believes in the value of like the pageantry of beautiful women and ring card girls and that sort of thing. She like, beautiful women make everything so much better in terms of like the presentation. Like she talked about that, but I feel like that's maybe some of like that Eastern world philosophy,
Sure.
you know, like those sort of cultural values in that way. Like she believes in like the opposing dynamics of the masculine and the feminine, if you will. But again, she can go in there and then, all right, well, you need to look the part and do all these like ballroom dances. She can do all that shit too. So that's fucking Jason Bourne in real life. That's James Bond in real life. That's Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome, man.
But yeah, so you know.
So
there's
anybody
many
else
fights
from
here.
Factory X besides Brandon? on
Nobody
this one?
else from us on this fight card. We've got a few guys that are coming up. We've got Jonathan Martinez in a couple of weeks. He's fighting Vince Morales. That should be a great matchup for Jonathan. We had a teammate fight him a couple of years ago. We had Chris El Guapo Gutierrez fight against. That's when he had
Nice.
the leg kick TKO.
Is that a fight night?
I believe
card?
that's a fight
Okay.
night. Yeah, that's going to be on a fight night. And then a couple weeks following from that, Josh Fremd, he's going to be fighting. Well, he fights in July, I should
That's
say.
right. I just saw a post of his or something, right? You just
Yep.
got another one. So
Yep, July
That's
9th.
awesome, man.
He's got Trayshawn Gore, who was
so
the runner-up
pumped he got
for
a
the Ultimate Fighter.
contract. So
Oh, yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And then DJ fights the next week after that.
love watching DJ too, man.
Yep.
Fucking awesome.
And then we've got LFA. That's coming up in the beginning of June. We've got, and that's for all your listener base out there who is fight fans. Come out and support these guys out at the Magnus Arena
100%.
at DU. That's going to be a
I might
great
be down
show.
there with you guys if I'm in town. I'm going to try to make it down. So
Hell yeah, absolutely. And if you for some reason can't come and join live, watch them on UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah.
That's going to be a great show to see a lot of that talent here in the Front Range and the mountain area. There's going to be your guys like your Jacoby Joneses and whatnot of the world. And then there's Fury that happens on May 15th in just a couple of weeks. That's here in Denver at, I believe it's the Douglas County Fairgrounds. Okay. But that's also going to be on UFC Fight Pass. There's a ton of fighters from whether it's Factory X, Elevation, 303, Genesis, all of the surrounding gyms, Victory down in the Springs. There's a lot of local talent that's on those cards. So come out and support these local fighters. It's a big deal for all of them. Buy tickets directly from the fighters, guys. They get commission from these. This is a big part of how
really?
they get paid. Yes. A lot of them for some of the promotions. It's also a thing of if they don't meet a certain quota with their ticket sales, then that's something that gets deducted from their purse. So it's a big deal for I know it seems insignificant from the consumer standpoint, especially with as direct as things have gotten with online purchases, but it really means something for these guys on that personal level to sell those tickets. And some of them have certain incentives with their ticket sales. Okay, you sell X amount of tickets, well then next time we book it, you might get a higher percentage type of thing. So that means a very big deal for these guys who aren't getting paid much to fight in the first place, especially if they're guys that are on the amateur ranks. They're not getting paid any
That's a
sort of
great
true
point.
purse. That is how they get paid, is by their ticket sales. So if you know any fighter out there, even if you don't but you're interested, hit them up on social media. They will be more than happy to make sure to accommodate that request to sell you a ticket.
hell yeah. Jordan, we got to wrap this up, man. I'm over right now. I knew this was gonna happen, but I love having you in here, dude. And I don't mean to cut you off.
No.
But
I'm
real
a talker.
quick-
You got to put the brakes on me.
Are you doing anything for this UFC? I know you have watch parties and stuff that you do at certain spots. I've never been to one. I really want to come. Unfortunately, I'm going to be in Boston if you're doing one this weekend. But
Yeah, this weekend we have one that's going on. UFC 274 watch party. We're at the bar at Plaza 38. Myself, along with UFC middleweight Josh Fremd, we will be hosting that.
oh, that's
gonna
cool.
be
Josh is
starting.
doing that with you too.
Yes, it's going to be
Do you guys
awesome.
do commentary, or what does a watch party consist of?
So we've done those. We've done commentary in the past. I did that with DJ actually, and Josh hopped on with us when we did a remote watch party for the fight where Dustin and Connor fought with the leg snap. We did that up at the casinos. I don't know if we're going to have a remote like fight companion style broadcast going on. We're still trying to figure out the logistics with the internet and the setup with all the audio equipment. Yeah. But there is a chance that we might be doing that. If not, it's just more or less, we interact with the people who come in. There's usually some sort of sports book element that's around that's sponsoring some aspect of these. I'm not sure what all of the promotional ties that my business partners have involved. I know that there's a couple of other sponsors that are going to be there with some of their products and whatnot for the night. We're going to have multiple different options of varieties of food. There's Mediterranean food. There's going to be sushi. There's an ice cream bar. There's going to be tacos, drink specials all night. We're giving away prizes. We're going to be giving away some tickets to a couple of the shows that I'll be calling in the next couple of months for Colorado Combat Club in June, as well as the 5280 Muay Thai Fight Series. So there is plenty of reasons for you to come and join us there at 3550 West 38th Avenue, Unit 98 in Denver, Colorado, at the bar at Plaza 38. All the reasons for you to show up. Plain and simple. Yeah, no cover charge, free parking, all of that. So appreciate you letting me plug that.
Oh, absolutely. And where can people catch you? You have multiple podcasts. Yep. You have the radio show. You're pretty much live at Factory X. So
yeah, we got a lot of different irons in the fire, if you will. So you can watch Josh and I's radio show, UFC Middleweight. Josh Fremd and I, we are the MMA Plug presented by the Talk of Colorado on 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio. If you're in the Denver metro area, you can stream us live on Wednesday nights from 6 to 7 p.m. on 98.1 FM. Also, worldwide, you can stream us online with the full video aspect of it. It is also a web show that's streamed live.
Yeah, I've listened to you guys on the radio before.
Yeah, so we have that full visual aspect of it. Like you would see it viewing it just like us here. You see that at either milehighsports.com and just click the live feed, or denversportsbetting.com/radio. You could watch that live any point. For on-demand clips from the segment, check us out at Comments from the Peanut Gallery on YouTube. All of those segments, as far as our betting previews, our weekend rundowns, 3-round segment where we just talk about pretty much like a debate style on hot topics.
You guys don't talk about pissing in rental cars.
We haven't gotten to that one.
That's not quite like this conversation.
That's the podcast that you could follow at Comments from the Peanut Gallery on all your podcast DSPs. Only we can't talk about pissing in rental cars because we're on FCC regulated airwaves. There, our producer Danny Bailey, he makes sure that we stay on track because sometimes we push the boundaries a little bit on what's acceptable for that. But again, though, it's a blast to do any of those shows. You can follow me along on Instagram at Comments from the Peanut Gallery. Check us out on Facebook, same thing, at Comments from the Peanut Gallery. Twitter at Peanut Podcast. There's so many different things that all of these different ventures that I have going on have going on behind the scenes that can't be put out just yet. So follow along and you'll be pushed out all of those updates as soon as they happen. For you guys too as well, man. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. This is now the second time that I've been blessed to be on the Mountainside Podcast. An incredible setup here. I mean, this blows me away every single time. Like the last time I was like, man, like
we recorded in the closet
setup.
The last time you were here.
Now it's like, am I down in Austin? Like, am I at the Rogan compound here?
No, we're a long ways from that, and not trying to be that either. So, but yeah, no. I'm super blessed, dude. We've had nothing but success with this thing, so that's why we're still doing it. And
you're having fun with it too.
But it's great guests too that we have on too. So I appreciate you coming on, man. Like it's always a good time with you. So you'll be back.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that.
Maybe it won't be. I think that was like a year and a half ago. That's how fast all this fucking time has gone by.
It was.
So we'll get you back in here.
December of 2020.
Was it?
Something like that.
That's crazy.
It was right at around.
Okay,
I know
we got to get you
time.
back more often. So
let's make it a thing.
All right, cool.
Yes,
Jordan,
sir.
thank you so much. We got to wrap this thing up. Jeremy, you good over there? Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. Also, if you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com.